世间所有的相遇，都是久别重逢。
清风明月如怀抱。
This week, a lot has been happening, right? Reading the book, I think the name is Khashoggi, former UN ambassador, the Singapore diplomat, right? The book about US and China. It's a fascinating book, but if I summarize it, it's a balanced take on the world geopolitics, right? It is slightly pro-Asia, I would say that, right? The theme or core message, however, is well reasoned with evidence, and the playing out of the reality actually matches what he's trying to say, right? We all know that the challenge is the new world, right? We live in two powers. One is on the other one side is the US, right, representing the developed world. The other is China. It's more like a developing country, right? On the US side, the industrialization is a path, right? We're more focused on the financial side, of, return the dominance, right? At the same time, they try to gain the dominant advantage of AI and robotics, right? On the China side, the more of the manufacturing, factory kind of industrialization, full scale, right? Every aspect. Almost totally self-sufficient within the country, right? And China is also catching up on the AI and robotics side, right? With some of the corners, right, maybe exceeding that of the US, but by and large, the US still leading, right? So positioning this is important, not to try to review books and just watching whoever said what, right? It's not really, for that, doesn't impress me, right? I'm building up my own business, right? And this is the core areas which is going to impact how I'm going to repivot, revise my business strategy, the line of business, the sales, marketing, right? And I have the responsibility to advise the board of directors, right? And also present the latest market evolvement, right? And especially navigate the regulatory and compliance side of the business, right? There's a lot to cover, right? So, I'm not going to read the whole book for the people there. Nobody has the time, right? The diplomacy is at the sort of political level, right? But doing business, a sufficient level of business acumen, the awareness of what is the climate, right, market condition, it is absolutely essential, especially in a kind of fragmented, multipolar world as we're living in today, right? So the supply chain is really fragmented, right? And if you're aware of the framework that I developed, right, the 6-layer overall architecture for the business, right? And the framework of lift, versus wall, right? We're doing a purpose, for a good, positive, right, meaningful purpose. That's why we get into the physical AI and robotics, right? We're not just doing for like money or for fun, right? That's not what we do. So there, I emphasize the reindustrialization as well, a new financial ecosystem that obviously regulatory, the law, right, the national level of, they all protect their own interests. Right? That's a natural given, right? On technology side, we pay particular attention to all those big players in the US, they're very keenly, like Elon Musk, SpaceX, and XAI, Grok, right, and Microsoft, the twist of the lawsuit, and OpenAI asked for them how many billions again, right? And Anthropic. I still strongly believe Anthropic and OpenAI eventually come together, right? They complement each other, and they initially was one. The leadership there, they probably benefit if they come together, other than become a competitor or something, right? We're slightly falling behind and feeling is the Amazon, right? But however, the Jeff Bezos opened up a new AI company or robotics, something, right? Blue Moon or something. We have to spend some time and dig out some facts, right? The Meta is catching up, small business agents, right? But business model is very shrewd. I'd say that it's quite. Yeah, we can take a slightly deeper dive, if time permits, right? Microsoft is obviously had some strategic errors. Hopefully, they are in the process rectifying that, right? Look at latest stock market, right? Tells a bit, right? You cannot fully invest in, the stock market fluctuation. That's normal, right? But again, fundamentally, it's flawed, right? They have a lot of vapid talks from the leaders, right? They don't really have a clear strategy, right? They're doing good for sure, right? They have a lot established empire, so many years, like Bill Gates built it up. But again, in terms of the competition, the market perception, right? It is something slightly not right, right? Not too sure how I put a finger on which part, but on AI and the robotics, right? It seems to be leveraged so much of what you have, right? And especially the partnership with OpenAI. But OpenAI, or Anthropic, all these, Google seems to have a bit of advantage, right? It has a good leader there, the DeepMind dummies, right? It has a clear screen, right? Clear thinking, right? Narek Schmidt is there, not about what is the other leader? I don't know. Seems they are coordinating to steer in the ship the right direction, right? The glasses, right? The world model, right? The Gemini, right? So, and they have the cloud, right? The platform, right? A lot of innovation there. I think comfortably they are playing a good strategic move, right? The Meta is coming up, right? I watched a bit of the Davos, right? About Ian LeQuinn, right? He's a really respectable scientist, right? Professor. He has brilliant insights into the AI and robotics and theoretical science and technology. However, I believe that he's less a business person, right? You have to have the strengths, the leadership to make it happen, And you might have a lot of brilliant ideas, right? But those ideas can be copied, right? But make things happen takes very, very stern, like, leadership skills, right? That's the hard part. The physical, getting real is not easy. And the reason I think it's slightly too complaining quite a bit, right? I mean, that is good. That is healthy to the overall community. But we need such a leader, such an expert scientist, right, to remind the whole industry. There could be things go wrong, right? But again, it's just not necessarily translating to benefit to him, right? I don't see Fei Li was speaking in Davos. I don't know why she's not there. Probably she does not have enough support in the industry, right? She also has a very clear mind, let's say that. Zheng Huang, a very well-spoken person, right, is, the layers he gave is different from mine. Well, I'm not trying to say that who, obviously, right, she's a successful person, right? Not try to compare or borrow his whatever the glory. No, don't think I need to do a lot. Me, just for my small, a purposeful business model, right? That's what I'm put together. It's really deeply connected with me. That's all, right? Now, the other front is the financial system, right? Lately, I think the Congress, the Senate, they have a vote for clarity, right? It's 12 to 11 something, right? It is a progress, but again, it signifies that that becoming a law will take some time, right? The time is of essence, in my opinion, right? The Mekong is catching up, right? MiCA is the market for crypto asset, right? That's what it is for. Really, just defining the framework for the market so that the innovators, entrepreneurs, and companies could have a clear direction, a framework to function within. So Dubai, right? That they have sandbox concept, allow the new startups to introduce and test out those crypto asset, right? How you tokenize it, right? And how you exchange the payment and so on and so forth, right? That is important, right? I mean, US, everybody looking up to the US, right? Because they are the best in terms of financials, right? But again, it seems to be they are a little cautious, or they have too much vested interest, or different groups at play. It could be better, right? It's safer, it's slower. But again, if you miss the window, one of the strategic modes is that you define standard, the others follow. Right? But if you're late, obviously, then nobody's going to wait for you, right? It's business, right? One day loss, you can never get it back, probably, right? This is where I think China side, they are more embracing digital currency or offshore currency, right? They put the protective layer, internally in the mainland China. They prohibit the tokenization of asset and stablecoins and bitcoins and so on and so forth. But that is good. That is for their benefits. But they use Hong Kong as a gateway to embrace. It's a two-layer system, and they commoditize the data side, as we mentioned. And this is all part and parcel of what I'm paying attention as an overall business strategy. Right? And the Prime Minister of UK, Starmer, his name, visiting China. Obviously, they signed some sort of currency-related agreement. Okay? The place I used to work, in a bank area, right, was a mint factory, right, old one. They kind of probe supposedly, right, to be the ground, a place for the new embassy in China, right, for Chinese embassy, right. So that's significant because it is still a bridge to the Europe, right. The strength of Britain is really the financial sector, right? What else do they have? Not a lot left, right? The institutionalized the system, right? It is formidable, right? It is not. You don't really find a second place that have such fully kind of respectable kind of system. But again, the Federal Reserve, the SEC, the CTRC or something, right? In the US, about the crypto payment, the assets, right? The currency. They try to find a balance, right? Who should govern what, right? For some, allow the innovation as well as protecting the consumers, right? The investor, right? That is good, right? But UK, in its perspective, is more aggressive, right? Because they are kind of, falling behind. They have to find a way to catch up, right? Also, they have brilliant minds in terms of financial operations, right? Bank of England. Put on my MaicroBanker chart, right? That is one of the reasons. Right? The brain, the upper chamber is still functioning. The economy is kind of not so sure they have a way to recover, right? But it's hard for anybody to put down the pride, right? They still think they are good, but reality says otherwise, right? So we're going to observe that's beyond our scope, right? We look briefly the silver sort of trade things, right? And in Kashar's book, you look at it, the current previous conquest territory and colonialism, right, versus the voyage, the 15th century. Right? Oh, we're going to talk a bit more, but essentially it's a comparison, a different philosophy, different approach to how. As we know each other now, like China and the US and Europe and everywhere, right? It is inevitable we'll come together. It doesn't matter it's United Nations or one conquest the other or wherever the Chinese model. But it doesn't matter. We may need a new thinking, a new world governance model. There are a lot of proposals, right? Everybody have a different thoughts, right? But again, back in 15th century, it already happened. It is not a replay. This covered half of those, but also to North America side, right, if you follow that trace, right? But essentially, we are, it says Achilles heel, weaponizing the dollar. We're weaponizing everything. Like China, restrict the export of silver for what purpose, right? It's kind of weaponization, isn't it? And rare earths, and the US side, the SWIFT sanctions, and the high tech, AI chips, right? A lot of bans there, tariffs, right? So you cannot really blame any of the nations to take a step that they kind of have to, but long term, does it really benefit them or benefit anybody? That's a question, right? But when the nation is declining, right, when things go wrong, panic, right? It's natural. Right? There's a lot of death in the US side, right? what is the best way out? Now, I'm not sure. It's not probably beyond my domain, right? So strategic error, it's according to Khrushchev, is not mine, right? And yeah, could be, right? War, as I mentioned, right, is always a factor. Like even in business, it's probably the most prevalent battleground that you have to have at least the thought of war. It is war, right? It is. Don't underestimate the how serious it is, right? A lot of money at play, money strategy is at play as well, right? If you don't have that in your mind, it's hard for you to survive. As I always mentioned, business is really about survival, right? It scale it up. It comes to a mission. It still is. If you like you, when I read for my children, right, in the Alice, the Wonder Adventure, right, and you have to keep running. If you don't, you would become irrelevant. Even if you keep running all the time, right, probably you still could just stay where you are, right, the place, right. That's hard, right. That's reality, though. Right? And what is it? The gold, the dollar, the economy, the game. Yeah, I mean, it's a good, convenient thought, right? The primary goal of US is to improve the well-being of the citizen, or to maintain the global primacy of Germany, right? If this contradicts which take precedence, I don't know. It's probably true to every nation. Right? The economy, I don't know. Is China overtaking the U.S.? Still not yet, right? The U.S. is still quite ahead, right? The dollar, that's the major thing that I'm observing, in addition to the AI robotics side of things, right? The reason being, like I believe that is one of the battleground, right? It determines the countries like Canada, right? How they're gonna really survive, right? You have to get a share, make sure the money is moving, right? You really have to think really seriously, deeply, Okay. Fundamentally, what is flawed in your financial ecosystem? We need a new financial ecosystem, as I kind of advocate. Right? The dollar is weakening, right? You cannot monetize the relationship or the Germany kind of a dominance too long, right? You could weaponize it, but essentially it may backfire, right? Like the tariffs, the sanctions, unilateral kind of whatever the governance, right? Long arm governance, right? So yeah, number 4 of the game. Yeah, that's just a kind of metaphor, right? US playing chess and China playing Go, Weiqi, right? Not necessarily. Okay, I think this is a very superficial view. The real thing at play is what I try to tell you, right? I Ching is the fundamental, whatever behind the whole thing. That's the root of the Chinese culture, the Chinese thought. If you don't understand that, you don't understand China. That is my business framework, if you will, right? The lift and the wall and how really to blend in the Western sort of the good side of it, right? Make it a more practical, right? And it executable. But you have to make it happen, right? You have to way to really operationalize it, right? Yeah, look at it. the twin errors, right? Whatever, right? And the verdict, it's okay. I mean, this is all one opinion, right? It could be really the handful of people who actually have the patience to watch what I put together, but that's fine, right? It's more for me to prepare. It's actually an advantage. Not a lot of people who come and visit, right? Because I have the responsibility to make it more consumable and make sure that I can benefit them. Because otherwise, it's kind of why should I waste people's time, right? If they don't come, that's good. That's okay, right? For those who come, I must make sure that they actually benefit from the time that we invest with me, right? Which is why I'm prepare sort of strategic review weekly for the investors, for the board of directors. Make sure they all together, right? Anybody who at any point want to exit or voice a change, please. Right? So it is in such a era, right? We need kind of openness. Right? Nobody can predict much, right? The change is quite, the velocity of change, right? The volume is quite stunning, right? Substantially beyond, us, right? We'll have to keep looking, keep thinking, right? Keep changing, right? It is, being humble is better than being arrogant, right? So what is this? Is automation and economy. That's really what I'm interested in. I call it sovereign robotics. I'm not building the machines working in a factory for sure, right? Or doing surgery. But again, by and large, those what I need to make sure that I totally understand what they're doing. EBB, ABBA, right? It's a different robotic companies, right? Five companies build the infrastructure of the physical world, right? It's a portfolio of 2034, the silent winner, right? You look at, while the market takes its apps and digital ads, and quite revolution is taking place in the physical economy. We are moving from science fiction to real business intelligence, real robots. I agree. This is why my business models focused on that, right? And a lot of noise, right? That I have to cut through to get the signal, right? Social media, YouTube, like doubles and different talks, so many, right? You can spend 28 hours a day not even able to get a percentage of that, right? But again, AI tools helps you. Those you may worthy listening 100 times. Those maybe just they talk for 4 hours, maybe just a couple of minutes worthy listening. Right? How do you know that? Again, AI tools help you to do that. So I mean, it's one way to look at what's going on, right? So I come with a lot of questions, which is why I build up the framework, right? At any moment, I think at least 9, call it, I have to have a number, right? You have to really make it executable and manageable, and more like an engineer, right? Science and technology, probably in my veins, and cells, and blood. Right? If you take back 10 years from now, will you realize you saw the automation? I think this is not the best question, right? You just fast forward 10 years. What do you want to see? What, if you think that's going to happen, what you should be seeing today? Are you seeing it? Are you That's the question you need to ask, right? You have to have some sort of framework allow you to observe and predict, and they work towards that. At the same time, you need to keep checking, double check. What's the reality? What, is your thinking? Do they match? Why not? If they do, then what you should do? Those are the questions. Those are the steps. It's very simple. You don't have to use too many complicated or confusing philosophy, right? The theory, right? So, okay. The four forces, right? Demographics, right? Shrinking work age, right? Labor economics, right? High turnover, rising wages, and so on. Technology convergence, the machine vision, right? The AI mobility, robots, and no longer blind. They can navigate the complex environment. Okay. Well, Elon Musk is very keen. We put Boston Dynamics from the US and Unity from China. There are many others, right? These five we have not even touched on previously, right? The supply chain resilience. It's fragmented. Forget about resilience, right? How do you build the resilience, right? I don't think there's any, probably in terms of resilience, China is probably the best example because they have the scale, large population, large enough market, right, economy. So they also have a large industrial base and talents, right, money, and they also have the needs, right? The automation economy, human design, the system, machines to do. This is good, right? That's why I mentioned the sovereign robotics. It's a new workforce, right? But you must under supervision of humans, right? That's what I believe. You look at it, zone one, the factory floor, heavy industry, right? High payload, high speed, repetitive, EBB, nervous system. Right? The muscle, right? Fanuc. I haven't really dig much, but let's go through this. The operating room healthcare, minimally invasive, human-assisted precision, intuitive surgical standard care. And the third is flexible logistics, the new way, right? Mobility, collaboration, density. Pterodon is collaborative. Symbiotic warehouse AI, symbiotic warehouse AI. Okay, that's interesting, right? Doesn't seem to me that they are relevant to what I'm pursuing, but the technology and the production side, right, it's worthy observing. The investment opportunity, the gap between the manual task today and the automated potential of tomorrow. I don't think it's purely about automation, right? Domain one, the factory floor, the titans and modernization, EVs, sure, this is fantastic. Even rockets is automated, right? The production part. EBB and the nervous system. The bear case risks. Okay. Cyclicality. Tried to industry capital. Lumpy orders, revenue volatility for large competition, fierce battles, and Yaskawa, right? Japanese side. The Japanese used to be really good, but I don't know where they are now, right? The industry seems to be collapsing, right? A lot of lies there, right? Fraud, quite large scale there. I don't know, this really sad, right? This used to be a strong industrial power, but it's still kind of strong, but declining, right? Less significant in a way. From that, I would just give you my honest observation. Right? what really determines whether you can sustain over a few decades of glory, that really the cultural background, right? That's like a person, right? You can be rich for some years, you can be rich for a couple of generations, but again, if that family has no culture, not civilized in a real way, right, it is very hard to maintain that. Right? You can have a lot of other measures taken, like using force, whatever, but again, it is fundamentally a cultural and civilized way, to maintain, to sustain that. Right? It's like a business. Right? You could one day have very good revenue. Right? You can sell like crazy, right? But again, how do you really sustain that revenue, the growth? It's very hard, right? It's not that different. Any business can have a few days of glory, right? But how many can sustain for a year on year, right? The growth, right? How many can become a century-old business? Very few, right? I mean, you look at IBM, right? You look at Siemens in Germany. Right? They're still formidable, giants, but they're declining. Right? Believe it or not, right? In Japan, Mitsubishi, right, was maybe over a century by now. But again, where are they? Right? Oh, of course, they're still doing really good, right? But again, vertically in that domain, they're probably still a star, but less shining star now. Horizontally across the globe, but not really that good, right? You have to be honest, face the reality. Right? Why? That is the question. Why? What is going on? Right? Again, I keep saying that purpose is important. The culture is important. Like a person, if you live for a high purpose to benefit others, for the majority of the fellow human beings, you have a sustainable kind of success. Like the wavelength is longer, right? More repeatable in a way, right? But if you purely want to be rich and then you try to turn around and pretend to be like you're superior or you're wherever superhuman, you'll fall, right? Nobody can escape that, right? I don't know whether this is a sound theory or not, but that's my simple-minded way of thinking about it. Right? For Nook, the reliable muscle exposure heavy reliance in China, auto and electronic. Okay, and the muscle and the brain of the machine tool, the secret weapon, CNC system, right, and the obsessive culture of electricity, massive cash buffer, right? Deepest relationship in manufacturing where downtime is enemy. Okay. Innovation like conservative approach to software versus Western peers. Who is this? Is it Chinese? I don't know. I haven't figured out. I'm not very knowledgeable in this heavy industrial side. Right? Probably Japanese, right? Looks like domain 2, the operating surgery, right? Room. The core concepts: minimally invasive human-assisted procedure and shift. The robot doesn't replace the surgeon. It removes tremors and tremors and skills motion and provides 3D vision. It upgrades the human. Yeah, that's what I like. Right? Maybe that's fit into the MaicroBanker side of my line of product, but I believe they're pretty expensive, right? Can be replaced, I believe, right? But probably not designed for for the future, in my opinion. Right? But again, yet to see. The intuitive surgical, the standard care, right? The razor and blade model, capital expenditure, okay, one-time scale, right? The product, the Da Vinci surgical system, wow, network effect. Surgeons trained on it, hospitals buy it to attract talents, and recurring revenue per surgery, right? Consumables, recurring revenue per surgery. All right. Regulation, the FDA hurdles, right? Reimbursement charges, the valuation, high premium. These are G&G Johnson, the Medtronic entering the space. Okay. What is it? It demonstrates collaborative mobile. The shape robots live in the cage and collaborative robot safety, accessory, small business. This is what I need. AMR, right? Autonomous mobile robot, moving materials without fixed tracks. Okay. Democratizing the automation beyond heavy industry. This is interesting, right? I might need to dig up more, really. Let me just take a picture. Let me see. We're looking at Pterodon, right? The hybrid growth engine. It's the bulk is the market leader in cobots, universal robot, right? Leverage the semi-test profit to fund robotic growth engine, cash flow, semi-test profitable. Cyclicality, semiconductor industry is highly volatile. Robotics still a smaller revenue. True, right? Here's the Helvetica, now displayed domain 4, logistics and warehouse. Right? The revenue, e-commerce require, that's true. This is already very popular in China. This in the docks, in the port, right, in the warehouse, right? Symbiotics, order from queues. What they do? AI-driven fleets, boats for high density storage, not stoic aisles, not dynamic retrieval, right? Just dynamic retrieval. Okay? The modern ports will be, one of the good example. Oh, there's a lot of competition. The validation, the Walmart partnership, rolling out system across region distribution centers, Amazon, right? Automation as a service, long-term project, the barricades. Yeah, well, the investors' mindset, patient reality, right? We'll expect volatility, but there are capex heavy industry when the economy shows upgrade the line, right? Tech card box way, right? Innovation creates opportunity, but also invites competition. For sure, right? Valuation matters, right? Growth is often priced in bet the 10-year trend, not the quarterly earnings, right? So what is the strategy? Ask, is the world likely to be more automated in 10 years? Ignore the monthly noise. That's good. Stay curious. Pick one commodity from the deck, read the manual report, follow the infrastructure. Yeah, I do need. I also need to build partnership there. But again, so I think it's quite telling, right? I might take a picture of this as well. Okay, I'm switching lens. Right? If you remember the revenue streams, one of them, right, is from the financial side, right? And it's mostly, the new financial changes that I'm targeting, right? But again, it's rooted in traditional finance, what I'm most familiar with, right? You cannot just dream big. You have to start small, right? Be very practical, solve the real world problem, not the made up problems. So problems to emerge in 10 years. You're not going to be having a business, right? If you do that. A lot of problems in the traditional finance, like the financial markets, the banks, right? The insurance, the investment, a lot, right? One of which is the asset, right? The liquidity part, the payment, right? It's so much so that you need to explore whether AI and robotics can help, right? And obviously, there are a lot of regulations, right? One of which I think we mentioned already is, the regulations like Clarity, like Genius Act, right? And NICOM, in the Middle East, rather Singapore is catching up, so is Hong Kong, right? Those are important. But again, what has been running the world right now, like private equity. It's good. At least we have strong like holders, of the kind of financial ecosystem. They are also willing to change. It's not like but again, everybody have their own vested interest, right? Here's where I think, right, it's more like we're marching towards a financially, right, or economically, right? Thinking of the Ming Dynasty, where the silver thing, right, but towards the end, I see some similarity. I have to articulate better. Private equity empire, and they also have very naive thought, right? And they think they dominate the country or everybody's life, right? But in effect, they're not. Right? That kind of naive thought, I mean, maybe not naive, but when they are in a strong position to dictate terms, conditions of any financial kind of transaction, they seem to forget they are also part of it. You cannot really overuse that, at least in a scale of, as a nation or internationally. Right? If you do that, it not only hurts you, it can destroy you, right? I don't know if I haven't really dived deep. I think just very casual thought, because I see some historical echoing, right? That kind of worries me, right? I kind of remind myself, don't get into this trap. Right? I kind of watch and listen to BlackRock and JP Morgan and other, talking about the new finance, the economy, the sovereignty, geopolitics, material. They're all fantastic talk, right? But again, it seems to me that they fixated their mind in a side as if they were untouchable, right? Nobody is, right? I mean, if you got into a state, you're about to decline, right? Or collapse, right? Well, cannot be very specific. I don't want to name names, right? Distracting the trillion-dollar industry that owns everything. Okay, from your mattress to your morning coffee, you are living in their world. Wow. The invisible hand. The author Jason Kelly's journey began with, but is this from a book or something, right? Yeah, just how extensive the private equity actually covered our life, right? And yeah, private equity is just Wall Street. It is also Main Street, right? Like Bay Street. The aha moment. PE firms manage nearly 3 trillion assets. Wow. Right, impressive, right? The Legoland Park. Oh, okay. Burger King. Wow, interesting, right? Sure, that it is a lesson to be learned. The emperors, the Big Four, Blackstone, KKR, the Carlyle Group, TPJ, the turnaround Keynes. Okay. Robertson, Conway, right? And all right, the founder of the KKR is Kravis, Robertson, Kronberg, right? All right, the old guard, famous for RGR, Nabisco, New York, right? Washington, Texas, San Francisco. The Blackstone is a financial supermarket, right? In New York, right? But I need to put on a chart. I haven't. Probably I should watch them, right? Private equity. I need to learn the rise and fall and what mistake they might have made, right? Not just how successful they can be. There are many people who can be successful, right? But when you fall, when you decline, how you manage that crisis and how do you revive it? That's what I want to see. Right? Again, have a few years, a few decades of success. It's not that difficult, right? The engine is cycle of profit, limited partners, private equity, buyout and management, and exit IPO. Okay? And the lifeblood, wooing the capital, right? Looking at a small conference in Oregon, right? The technist, Tony James, the president of Blackstone, the antagonist, right? The investment committee of the Oregon Public Employee Retirement Fund, right? Why did fund V lose 2%? Well, the defense is the S&P lost 7, right? Then we outperformed the market. The resolution Blackstone secures $200 million for fund 6, but fees dropped from 1.6 to 1. Oh, the key insight. Even masters of the universe answer to public servants. Financial editorial, high fidelity design. Okay, cool. It's a good story to tell. I might come into these situations quite frequently. So look at it, the public pension fund, sovereign wealth funds, limited partnership. Whose money is it? University endowments, right? Ivy League capital seeking perpetual growth, Harvard and Yale, right? The government capital, often oil-based, like Adia from Abu Dhabi and CIC from China. The biggest bucket, teachers, firefighters, civil servants, they have the retirement, right? Pension fund, rebalance, fight back, right? Oh, Steve LeBlanc, strategic consolidation concept, write bigger checks to fewer firms in exchange for slashes fees in better terms. Saw that, right? The union, right? Institutional limited partners association, the collective bargaining unit demanding transparency. The Canadian model. Oh, the leader, James Leach, right? Ontario Teachers Pension Fund strategy, direct investment, right? Concept behind build internal teams to bypass PE firms entirely, buy companies directly. Cool, that's also a good strategy, right? Here's the case study. Carlyle, the Kings of Washington, the strategy, hiring government heavyweights to open doors in regulated industries. The roster, Frank Colucci, okay, ex-defense secretary James Baker, yeah, can't remember that. Proof of concept BDM International, acquired from L'Oreal, defense contractor, deal that proved political insight and capital. Wow. Yeah, the Trinity DBD leadership model. Wow. Don't do. That's interesting, right? The Trinity works, right? Like a triangle, a Trinity, something double-edged sword. It's numbers, right? And this acronym, right, works wonder, right? And global expansion, the village, right? That's true, right? The cooperation and across the world, right? The mortgage analogy, right? The mechanism leverage as oxygen, right? The total is $100, right? Debt is 80%, equity, down payment 20, right? Asset value increased 10%, equity value increased, all right, 50%, right? Buying a house versus LBO, right? And the architect in the Lee Chemical Bank revolutionized the syndicate debt, and inside the debt amplifies returns but also amplifies risk. It is the fuel of the industry. This is about finance, right? Anybody who's been working there should understand this. When leverage buys the crush, right, the entity, the CCC, hedge fund like sort of entity investing in mortgage bonds, flow. The leverage 30 to 1, borrowed $30 for every one of equity. The events would be 2000 credit crisis, right? The crash, financial, globally, really. The result collapse, the public humiliation, proving that in a credit isolate, liquidity is king. And Blackstone, KKR, CG. The exit, IPO, right? The shifting from private partnership to public corporations, motivation, one, permanent capital, right? Escaping the 10-year fundraising cycle, the tension, secrecy versus transparency, quarterly earnings and long-term value, motivation, monetization, obviously, the founders cashing out, villain, e.g. the Schwarzman 3.98 billion payout, the succession, handing the reins to the next generation, Glenn Youngkin. Yeah, I mean, as I said, right, if we don't have leftover like a wealth, right, and if we don't need to hand down to the next generation, and if we don't need to distribute it to the shareholders, I don't need to increase the paid salary like to our employees, the fees and commission to our partners, then we don't need finance, right? But we do because we have some leftover, right? But how to distribute it, how to pass it on, it's art and war, right? It's both. Lexicon of the empire, dry powder, capital raised out, not yet invested, the war chest. They carried the interest, the 20% of performance fee kept by, general partners, right? And tax lower capital gain rate, prevented. The years the fund begins investing like 1 performance varies by year, 2 and 20. The standard fee model is 2% annual management fee, 20% share of the profit. And empires today, too big to ignore. Evolution from buyout shops to diversified asset management, real estate, credit, hedge funds, and the stewards of the global retirement system. Are they going to embrace the stablecoins as well, that we need to watch a bit, right? I don't know where they are. I need to put them on chart and follow up. Reflection, the founders did. Institutions designed to outlast them. They transformed from barbarians at the gate to the new techon, the global economy. The industry has grown from an adolescence to a pillar of the economy. Wow. Very impressive. Well, there's a lot to cover, but for today, let's close shortly after now. We take the silver, going to return quite frequently. The silver legacy, the pressure. This Iran today, right? The specking empire of the 2024 to 651, right? Susanin Sashan Diguo. Okay, yeah, I understand the Chinese term, not familiar with the English translation. The rise of the king of kings. Yeah, the territories. If you look at it, Arabs and Kushan Empire, Black Sea. Oh, you can see Indian Ocean, right? And just the today's more of the Iran area, right? So Persian Gulf, right? And standard around the golden dinar, silver and copper. Okay, good silver, copper. Right? Copper is also one thing to follow, right? Not just the silver, gold. Right? You heard the crush of gold today. So not today, yesterday, right? You wonder why, right? It's just a market play. You don't take it too pessimistically, right? The people who have the power to play, to make market, right? They are advantage, right? It's like a harvest season, right? And it doesn't mean that it's going to go down like you imagine forever. Right? And that build up, you also have to be really watch, right? And what is this? Oh, forging the silver disc. Yeah. I like the high relief, thin. Okay. The anatomy of the authority observer. Profile. Okay. The crown in the K. Yeah, it's so beautiful, right? Quite ambitious, right? What is this? The middle person reads from right to left. The scripts is and figures, right? With single shapes often representing multiple different letters. Guardians of the secret file. Sure, you might know what it means. The religion, right? Atar, the file. Diadems, symbol of royal investor, right? The guardians, the representing the kind of deity, you know, the Misra or Anista. I don't know how to pronounce it. Let's try to. The geography of the mint, right? All right, the mint mark and the key mint location, and dating the reign. Oh, 592. Okay, and here's the authenticity, the deception, genuine. Oh, the modern cost, soft, soupy, right? Sharp on its genuine. Okay, and the transition to Islam after the fall of the empire. Arab governors continued to mint Sashan style coins, right? Adding religious inscriptions and the margin, this Islamic part, Arab. Okay, what is it? History in the palm of your hand, the cane, the face, right? It's worthy a cursory view for now. I have to close for today, right? There's a lot to talk. I'm gonna continue tomorrow, right? What name should I give it? Let me think about it, right? Maybe take a couple shots. Okay, we'll talk soon.